Hey.
Have you read Marley and Me?
Yeah. Sad.
Why is it sad?
You don't know what happens?
No, that's why I'm reading it. Does the dog die at the end?
No, I'm not saying anything.
Look how much I had left.
I was thinking you'd come stay with me.
It's okay if I tell him we're trying to get pregnant.
That's great.
And you say we are because it's not sexist that way, right? That's what you told me.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be the creepy gay uncle.
You're hired.
Well, last I heard you moved to LA to be an actor.
Yeah, did you not hear I won an Oscar?
Oh.
Surprise. Hello. Back from the dead. What are you doing here?
When do the boys show up?
It's Dyke night, sweetie.
It's what?
Dyke night.
You're my brother. We're supposed to be there for each other.
I'm tired of you acting like you're the healthy one and I'm your special needs kid.
I get depressed about my life.
So you're not a famous actor? I got news for you. No one's a famous actor.
George Clooney's a famous actor.
Okay, George Clooney, I guess that's one exception. How did we go 10 years without talking?
Well, it's probably not worth talking about now. You have to tell me a secret.
I slept with my scuba instructor.
Maggie! Wouldn't it be easier just to tell Lance you're not ready to have a kid?
What am I gonna do?
I told somebody that I was in town. Don't freak out.
Hi, Angel.
Mother.
Wow.
You know what? You need to take...
Say you put on something pretty. We're going out. Dad always told us to stick together, no matter what.
Maybe we should have a Dude's Day. I think your version of Dude's Day and my version are totally different.
Awesome! Awesome!
I have a very serious question for you. Will you go to prom with me?
Hello.
Hello. No one's allowed to be on their computers while I'm talking.
No
I'm joking.
working.
I'm joking. Totally joking. That would suck.
Welcome, Bill Hader. How are you?
Good. Good. This
Nice
is
to
really
see
nice.
you. So I promised myself that the first time I ever interview Bill Hader, I would tell him that every time I watch Game of Thrones on HBO Go, and every single illicit item appears on the screen and the little parental warning that comes up, and it's like explicit violence, sex, language, nudity, like everything you can imagine. And I say to myself, or I turn to my boyfriend and I say, this show has everything. So can you please guest star in Game of Thrones so I can put all of these ins together, please?
No, that was always the coveted thing when you were growing up. If you saw it had, AL, adult language, and then N was nudity, that was huge. But then if it had SC, which was strong sexual content, that meant...
Then you were really in business.
That meant, this is great. Lock the door. This is awesome.
Everything Bill Hader needs in his
Yes.
career.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on the Skeleton Twins.
Oh, thank you very much.
You had a great small opening weekend
Yeah.
in terms of the number of theaters, but
Yeah,
large
but
dollars.
Yeah, the per screen average was really big, so that's awesome. Yeah.
That's incredible. Talk to me about I'm curious about the development of this film. Obviously, it pits you and Kristen back together. And Anna Faris was originally attached to this role,
and Kristen, she had to drop out, and, it was 2 years of being, having the money, not having the money. I signed on in 2010. And so it was this kind of, Craig Johnson, the director, would email me every 2 months. We've got the money. And then he's like, wait, hold on. Pump the brakes, we don't have the money. And then he said, what about Kristen Wiig to play your sister? She, her schedule opened up and, we're thinking about sending her the script. And I had been in that position where, he said, would you say something to her? And I've been in that position of friends calling me being like, hey man, read this, no pressure. And I'm like, no, there's always pressure. So I said, no, I'm just not gonna say anything to her. You guys do that. I don't want to put any pressure on her. And so then she called me up a couple of weeks later and said, I read Skeleton Twins and I met Craig and I'd love to do it, but only if you'll have me, only if you feel comfortable with me playing your sister.
So she was seeking your permission.
She wanted my permission to say it. She's like, the only way I'll do it is if you want me to play your sister. And I said, absolutely. And then it was like, bam, we had the money, like immediately. It was like, Kristen Wiig will do it? It was like, zhink, money just oh my gosh. They're just throwing money at us.
So when you're so familiar with the way, and obviously SNL kind of is within this like bubble in terms of the way, every show is developed, but when you're familiar with the way somebody works like that, do you still have to have kind of a meeting of the minds where you like iron out the characters, or do you feel like we've done this so many times, let's just
Yeah,
go
I
for
mean, it felt like we had done it so many times that, the first day of shooting the movie for Kristen and I, the first 3 days of shooting was all the stuff with Ty Burrell, and then Kristen and I, on the fourth day, we did this scene where it's on Halloween and we're kind of dressed up. I'm dressed in drag and she's dressed up as a cowboy, and we do this slow dancing scene, and before that, we're sitting in a booth and we're just talking, and we're reminiscing about our lives. And the first take, Kristen and I just kind of fell into a real easy rhythm, and we're kind of improvising a little bit to get into it, but it was such a well-written script. You kind of improvise. We work the same way, where you kind of improvise, you feel comfortable, and then you start the scene, so it feels like a continuation of a conversation, And Craig Johnson, the director, said cut, and he was so happy he danced over to us. He was all like, oh my, because it was so cool to see him. He's lived with these characters for 7 years. He wrote this movie 7 years ago, and he's like, there they are, they're talking to each other, and it has this intimacy and this chemistry that he goes, you guys feel like brother and sister. And I'm like, well, we kind of are. We've known each other and worked with each other for so long. That it was effortless, yeah.
Well, you mentioned improv, and obviously this movie teeters more, it's a dramedy, but I think teeters more on the drama than the comedy. Are you still improving the heavier moments in the film as well?
No, it was the script. Mark Heyman and Craig Johnson wrote the script, and it has such a, the tone of it is a really, really hard thing to strike, which is funny, equal parts, drama, and they did it so beautifully you didn't want to mess with it at all. It was actually the opposite. It was more Craig saying, say this in your own words. I know what the script says, but if you can get that idea across in your own words or what you think now the character would say, because Craig, and a smart director, was saying, now you own this character, he's yours. I wrote it and created, but now it's you. So how would he say it? And for all of us, with Luke Wilson, with Ty Burrell and Joanna Gleason, and so there wasn't a lot of improv in that. But in the sillier moments, yeah, he would kind of say, yeah, go have fun. There's a scene where Kristen and I are on nitrous, and he said, just go.
Are you really on nitrous while filming that scene?
No. No. But it was fun. It was a fun scene to shoot. But that was a scene where he went, just go nuts, like, make each other laugh. I'm going to stay out of the way, and it was fun.
So when we see that scene with nitrous, is it an entirely improvised scene?
No, there's a scene of us talking, and that's all written, but the stuff of us being silly with each other, and Kristen, you see it in the trailer where she has that thing on her face, and will you go to prom with me? Kristen just came up with that on the set, and
So one of the movie's signature moments, which is not a spoiler because we saw it in the trailer, is the lip sync, which is to the Starship song, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Was it always going to be that song?
No. The song initially was Hold On by Wilson Phillips, but a little movie called Bridesmaids came out.
Yes.
And they couldn't do that. So Craig Johnson said he auditioned all these other songs. He stood in the mirror singing all these songs from the 80s, trying to get the rated Tiffany, Debbie Gibson. He did all these things. And then he came on Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, which is a duet. And he went, because initially in the script, it was 2 sentences. It was Maggie's depressed, Milo puts on Hold On, sings it, and she laughs, and then we cut out. you know? But then once it became a duet, it was a Starship song. Did someone just, okay. Someone just fell over. Call the police. Or not. Okay. Maybe he's a bad guy. And so once it became the Starship thing, it was suddenly it was a duet, and it kind of moved the story forward. It had an emotional element to it. It's my character trying to get her out of a funk. And Craig Johnson gave me a great, very simple direction. For anybody who wants to be a director, active, simple directions are really good. And he just said, you know, charm her, get her off the couch and make her join you. I don't care what you do, just get her off the couch. And Kristen made it really, really hard for me to get her off the couch. And that's what made the scene so good, because it was it's all real, you know? She didn't know what I was gonna do, and I'm sitting there going, man, she's making this really difficult, you know, and it was really fun.
Your character has a lot of distinct mannerisms and vocal inflections. Is that something that you kind of practice before you get, or perfect before you get to the set, or is it just a natural part of shooting a scene that just comes to you?
It's kind of a little of both, but it's more in the moment. You kind of sit and you read this great character that, you know, that these guys wrote, and then you say, okay, well, you know, here's how I kind of imagine this person. Here's a projection I have of them in my head. And then it's that you go to wardrobe and you say, I think this is the way this person would dress. But that's a collaboration with the director and the costume designer, and you work that out. And then you get your hair cut a certain way. And then you go with the production designer and you go, well, this is what I think my apartment would look like. And you do all this research and you think about people in your life and friends of yours and people that are kind of like this character. And the director, Craig Johnson, walked me around the block once and told me Milo's whole backstory, which none of it's in the movie. He just told me his whole backstory. Here's when he came out of the closet. Here's how his parents reacted. Here's what, you know, all this stuff. And so I had all this. You have all this kind of research and ammunition, and then you get to set and you're just reacting to everything the way that person would. You know what I mean? So I'm just reacting to what Kristen or Ty or Luke is, what they're doing. I'm just reacting to that, you know, as that person, you know, as best you can, you know.
And does it come and go from day to day easily? So, for like, you know, you have a lot of like hand gestures in this movie that are, you know, very particular. Are you ever having a flashbulb of a thought of, well, I don't know, I moved my hands differently yesterday, or?
No, not at all. And there was a discussion a bit because Craig Johnson, the director, is gay, and I was very conscious. I was slightly conscious of being like, well, I don't want to make this to that stereotypical straight guy playing a gay person. And Craig, it was interesting. He felt the opposite. He was like, you can push it further. Don't try to iron out the gayness of this guy, you know? He was like, just be that. That's like my friends and like friends of yours. Like we have mutual friends. You know, we talk. He's like, yeah, just, you know. If anything, when I was in drag, he was like, you should be totally fabulous all the time. You have full license
Absolutely.
to be completely fabulous. And I was like, I love it.
So I read in preparing for this interview, I was not aware that you were a PA on the Star Wars making of featurette that's on the trilogy DVD from the original trilogy. Are you like a huge Star Wars nerd?
Well, I liked Star Wars a lot growing up, and I loved Star Wars growing up. And then I got to do that documentary, and that was just by chance. A friend called me and was like, hey man, you know, it's a 2-week job, and you work as a post-production assistant. It's a documentary called Empire Dreams, and it's about the making of the Star Wars trilogy. And I was like, I almost drove off a cliff, and then I didn't see what the cliff was. And I went, whoa, my God, there's a cliff. No, but the cool thing I got to do is I got to go and watch a lot of dailies from the original Star Wars, which was the coolest thing in the world.
That's awesome.
And just watch them in the Millennium Falcon, and it's really like kind of weird, and then going cut, and Harrison Ford like, you know, and everybody kind of settling and being like, all right, George, what do you want us to do? Okay, you know, and then it's like, we got to get out of here, you know, and it's just so kind of rinky-dink, you know, and I go, oh, I could see if you know, if I was an act, you know, now being an actor, I could see being kind of nervous, especially in the 70s. You had never seen a movie like that before, being like, is this gonna work? You know, what are we shooting? And Darth Vader, it's David Prowse, the guy who not the voice of Darth Vader is James Earl Jones, but the guy who actually played him, and it's him doing all the lines. And it's a bit like the Black Knight scene in Monty Python, the Holy Grail. It's like, I am Darth Vader, and you are he. Yeah, and if I was an actor on this, I'm like, this is gonna suck. What are we making? This stinks. You know?
During your 2 weeks on that set, I mean, did you meet like George Lucas and all these Star Wars greats?
No. I stayed in one little dark room with like a 3/4 machine and they were giving me dailies, and I just had to type like, you know, transcripts of dailies. It was really boring, but awesome as a Star Wars fan. It was great, but I was just a transcript person.
Yeah. You were recently, are you aware that you were recently among the final 4 greatest SNL cast members ever, according to Grantland's like poll breakdown thing that they did recently?
Oh, the bracket thing?
The bracket, that's the word that I'm going for.
You and I are the same. I didn't know the bracket. I'm like, we don't follow sports. No, I did not. I heard that later. Yeah, that it was like the top 4, which was very nice.
Yeah, how's that feel?
That was cool. Yeah, that was all right.
What do you think of the 3?
I don't know. I was like, cool. I don't know how to respond to that. I can't be like, yeah. I was like, well, that's cool.
What do you think of the 3 who were with you in those final rounds? It was you, Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy, and Phil Hartman.
No women.
That's true.
I don't know about that. There's some really funny women at SNL.
What woman would you put in there?
Kristen Wiig, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Gilda Radner, Lorraine Newman, Jan Hooks, Nora Dunn,
all of them.
Molly Shannon. I mean, come on. I don't know about that, but that's very flattering. But there should be a woman somewhere in there. Every time, my whole time at SNL, women were always the quarterback. It was like Tina when I got there, then Amy, and then Kristen. You know, we were always, they were always the ones doing like the best work.
And I'll ask you one more before we open it up to the audience. You originally, you said you wanted to be Paul Thomas Anderson, that you wanted to emulate Paul Thomas Anderson.
I wanted to marry
directed
Maya Rudolph.
Boogie
Who's another
Nights
funny
and
one.
There Will
Maya
Be Blood.
Rudolph. I can't believe I missed her. Maya Rudolph. Yeah. She should be in there. She should be number 1. Maya Rudolph. Oh my God, she's the funniest. In my time there, she made me laugh harder than anything.
Donatella is the greatest.
She would do a thing where she would make me laugh. She would just try to make me laugh just in life, and she would walk by, and one time she pretended to slip, and she went, "What? My vagina!" She played this woman that would pretend to fall in her vagina. She'd go, "Ah, my vagina!" And it would make me laugh harder than anything in the world, and I would just be crying, laughing. But no, Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson, no, when I first moved to LA, I wanted to be a filmmaker. Like, those were the kind of movies that I wanted to, Alexander Payne, and then, like, Martin Scorsese, the Coen brothers, Kurosawa, Bergman.
So can we expect to see you direct a film of that nature?
I would love to. I might, I was just saying this, you move out to LA and you want to do all these things, and then you finally get the money to do it, and, it takes forever, and you make a short film and you shoot it, and then you look at the footage and you're like, this is awful. I've wasted, all this time and money on this thing. And so it was much harder for me to do. And then out of that frustration, I started taking classes at Second City LA, because I'm like, I just got to do something creative. I've been in LA for 5 years. I've done nothing but PA and do these other things, and now I just got to do something. And so I started taking classes, and things worked out for that. And so it's an interesting kind of path you're on, and I just, like when I was at SNL and I would try to be strategic, it would never work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Anytime I would say, well, this is what I'm gonna do, it never worked. But anytime I just relaxed and just like let things happen and kind of follow, forever I wanted an original character on the show, and I could never get an original character, a reoccurring character on the show. It was really hard. I was the impressions guy, and I would try everything, and then when I would relax, it would start happening, And if you would have told me that Stefan would have been like a thing, I'd been like, no, because it's like, it's a low energy character, it's a druggy character, it's everything that I learned at SNL that the audience didn't react to. Nuanced thing never works, and then that worked. And it
Was that the first original character?
No, I did Vinny Vedecci, and I did a character called Greg the Alien, who's a sports caster. Just saying that out loud is like,
He's one of the 4 best SNL people ever, okay?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think what else. There's other characters I did. And then later, Herb Welch, who's an old reporter who hit people in the face with a microphone. There's actually a character that I love named Vince Blake, who is a game show host who did a game show called What's That Name, where he would mess with people. And our theory is that he was an independently wealthy person and that this game show wasn't being aired anywhere. He just... that was never discussed in the sketch. It was just John Mulaney wrote it, and he would go, "Yeah, I don't think this is actually being taped. I don't think any of the contestants know that this isn't being taped." So that was fun.
That's great. Questions from the audience?
Oh boy, this has to be good.
Right here.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
I'm a huge fan of SNL.
Oh, thank you.
And all of your characters. I just wanted to know if you had a particular favorite SNL moment or like a memory that when you think back, that's what you might think to.
A lot of them. I forever, like a lot of people, I wish I had, I could, like play a musical instrument, and I can't. I'm not very good. And then Fred Armisen wrote this sketch where we were a band in a wedding. It was his daughter was being married, and we were this, and he goes, "Honey, as a gift to you on your wedding day, I got my old band back together, and we're gonna play for you." And it was me and Dave Grohl, and Dave Grohl was on drums. And we were these old guys like, "Congratulations, Jenny," or whatever. And then the joke was that we used to be a hardcore punk band. And so we started playing this hardcore song, and Fred's like thrashing around and stuff. Because the joke being that all those hardcore guys are now in their 60s and like stuff. And I got to play bass for real with Dave Grohl on drums. That was the coolest thing in the world. And I was on a high for about 2 months. I would be at Starbucks, being like, "So, Foo Fighters?" "Yeah." "You know the main guy?" "Yeah, he used to be a drummer in a little band called Nirvana." "Yeah, I played with him." No one cared.
In the front?
Where? Hey.
Hi, also a huge fan.
Oh,
Where
thank you.
is Stefan now?
Where is
Is he with Seth?
He's probably asleep on the corner of 23rd and 9th someplace.
Awesome.
We have a Twitter question, actually, where they asked
Uh-oh.
if you have CPG, asked if you have any personal relation with depression as your character in the movie.
Wait, say that again?
Do you have any real experiences with depression, like your
Oh,
character? in the
yeah,
movie?
because the character. Well, I feel like the characters in this movie don't have. They don't have clinical depression, but they are people who are dealing with something. They're dealing with their past and they're trying to learn how to forgive themselves. I don't have any history with depression. I do have a major history with anxiety. I'm very anxious, especially before SNL episodes. I would get get very anxious, and my wife would have to come down and hold my hand and talk me through the show and say, "It's all right, here we go," and And then during a Jeff Bridges episode once, I had a panic attack during a sketch. That was one of the worst moments of my life. On live television, I started going, "Oh, why is an elephant sitting on my chest?" And then I was like, "I'm gonna start crying. This is awful." I was playing Julian Assange, and I was just tired, and I was going like, "Oh my God, this is awful. This is not happening." And then I kind of told Seth Meyers about it, and he goes, "That happened to me like two seasons ago. I was doing Update, and suddenly I was like, what's happening?" Well, so it happens. It just happens to everybody. So now I'm on a lot of drugs. No. I'm on a pretty awesome cocktail of, no.
Hi. Yep, it's on.
Hi.
So obviously everyone knows you from SNL. We love you. But you've been in like a bunch of movies as a more cameo secondary cast member. I was wondering if you can sort of point to one or two of those roles that's allowed you to go from the SNL to the cameo movie role to the lead role that you got in this movie.
Oh, I don't know. Most of it wasn't from other films I had done. It was mostly, for this movie, it was mostly like actually going up, and I did a dramatic table read for a movie because people had only seen me in big comedies. Most notably, probably Superbad was the one that I get noticed for the most. And Forgetting Sarah Marshall was another one that people talk about. And then lately, Hot Rod, which is a movie I thought no one liked. I have so many people come up to me about Hot Rod, which is awesome. I'm so happy. I call Andy Samberg. I'm like, someone just came up to me about a Hot Rod. He goes, "Hey, you know how backhanded comment that is?" Remember the thing we did that no one liked? That guy liked it. And it's like, Bill, stop. But no, I did this dramatic table read to try to get casting directors in New York to see me, to say, "Oh, he's interested in doing this, and he can kind of do it." And so A.V. Kaufman, this casting director, had a table read for a movie that never got made, and at the table read was Kate Winslet, Bradley Cooper, Greta Gerwig, Paul Dano, and me. And I was just like, "Hi." I'm like, "What's Stefan doing here?" But I worked really hard, and there's this kind of perception where that you think, oh, you got SNL or you're in these big movies, and that you stop having to kind of work for jobs. That's so untrue. I audition, I put myself on tape all the time. I say, "Will they see me?" And they go, "They're not interested in you." I'm like, "Can I put myself on tape anyway and just, try it?" Yeah, you're still working really hard, to get those jobs.
Do we have time for more? Two more.
They have to be good. No.
Oh, no pressure.
I'm so nervous for you.
Oh.
No, I'm joking.
Me too, don't worry, you're good. So speaking of Amy Poehler, today is her birthday, and so I was wondering...
I totally knew that.
That's fine, don't worry, it's cool, I got you. I was wondering if you had a favorite moment of her on the show, or maybe something you've learned from her that you've applied to your life, or what we can learn from her.
So much from Amy Poehler. I was incredibly, incredibly lucky to show up as a freshman at SNL, and Amy was a senior. She did one of the best things that I think helped me get the show was Megan Mullally had seen me in a show in LA, recommended me to Lauren Michaels. Lauren Michaels flew out to LA to see this show, and the audience was filled with my friends, and so the show played really well. And Lauren went, "Were those all your friends?" I said, "Yeah," and he's like, "I'm flying you and your sketch group out to New York. You guys are gonna do it at UCB where no one knows who you are, and I wanna see if it plays there." shoot. So we fly out, and I look out. So we have the UCB Theater at 26th Street, and I look out, and there's Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Seth Meyers, Lauren Michaels, everyone just like, it's a writing night. Lauren's made them come to this show to see this guy, to see if he's funny or not. Just talking to you about it right now is making me want to throw up. It's awful. And so I came out, and also flanked by all of them are a bunch of New York improvisers who are going, who the F are these jerks from LA who got Lauren Michaels to come to their show? And the first thing we did, the first joke, Amy started laughing, and she laughed really loud. I just don't think she found it funny, but she laughed to kind of say, hey, like, to calm me down, and I had never met her before. She just knew, like, this guy is in a really tough spot, so I'm just gonna laugh, and she has a beautiful, loud laugh, and it made everybody in the room going, well, Amy's laughing. And then I'm going, Amy Poehler's laughing at me, you know? And so I calmed down, everybody calmed down, and we had a great show, and I got the job. And so that meant the world to me. Another thing Amy did was she told me my first season, was she took me and Andy Samberg out to dinner, my very first day at work, and said, what do you want to know? Like, what do you need to know? And gave me great advice, like, don't do the show for your friends, you know? Your friends will be like, you're funnier than this. You know, don't worry about your friends. You know, that was great. And so I, because of that, when new people like Vanessa Bayer and people came in, I would take them to the exact same restaurant, the exact same table, and say, Amy Poehler did this for me, so I'll do this for you. What do you want to know? Don't do the show for you. And I would, you know, do the same thing. So she's the most wonderful human being on the planet.
Did you send some flowers to Megan Mullally or anything?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Amy Poehler should have been number one on that bracket. Now that we're talking about it, I'm gonna keep going back to that. Sorry.
One more.
Hey, my question is related to what it's like acting with Kristen Wiig, what it was like acting with her on SNL versus in the environment of working on this movie specifically.
Well, at SNL, it's you're performing, and it's this weird thing, the difference between acting and performing. Performing is like out for a big live audience, and then acting is much more in a movie, and you're much more nuanced and things like that. And when you're on SNL, it's weird. You're acting to cue cards. You're never looking at the other performer. You're looking at the cue cards, and you have to do it that way, or it doesn't look right. The shot doesn't look right. So it's a different kind of performing with Kristen, and we would make each other laugh so much and have so much fun. But then once you're kind of in the zone, like, okay, it's the live show, here we go. For a long time, I was very rigid, you know. And then by the end of it, I would kind of relax and we would have fun, you know. But it was mostly, Kristen is such a generous performer, you know. Especially when we would do the Californians, like we would just start making each other laugh. I mean, that was the whole thing. Me and Fred going, how do we make Kristen laugh? And they're saying, well, how do we make Bill laugh? And I don't know how much fun it is to watch at home, but we were having a blast. And then to do this movie, it was bringing everything that we had together as friends and bringing all of that into the movie, you know? And we could be real vulnerable in front of each other and kind of fail in front of each other because we'd done it for so long at SNL, you know? And so it was really wonderful. We both felt much closer together, you know? And you know, it's a thing where you work with someone and you know you care about them, and then something might happen where you never realize like how important that person is in your life. Like making this movie, I was like, oh yeah, Kristen, you're like a huge part of my life, you know? And she was saying the same thing about me, like, God, but you know, and we came up together in SNL, you know? I mean, it's crazy. And so so yeah, no, it was one of the best working experiences I've ever had, working on this movie with her. And she's one of the best actors going, bar none.
Thank you so much, Bill. It was
Thank
wonderful.
You guys.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to go wish Amy a happy birthday.